What specific problem does your method aim to solve regarding the predictability and scaling of value-based deep reinforcement learning, RL algorithms?
Our method aims to solve the problem of predictability and scaling in value-based deep reinforcement learning, RL algorithms, by establishing reliable relationships between hyperparameters, data, and compute requirements. Specifically, we focus on predicting the optimal hyperparameter settings, batch size, learning rate, and updates to data, UTD ratio, at different scales, allowing us to determine the minimum data and compute needed to achieve a target performance level. We demonstrate that the data and compute requirements evolve predictably as functions of the UTD ratio, which defines a trade-off between the two resources and can be visualized as a Pareto frontier. By extrapolating from low-budget experiments, we can predict resource allocations for high-budget runs without needing to conduct large-scale experiments. Ultimately, our findings challenge the conventional belief that value-based deep RL does not scale predictably, providing a framework for optimizing resource allocation in RL training.
How does the proposed method work? Please illustrate step-by-step how the hyperparameter predictions and scaling relationships are established.
The proposed method establishes hyperparameter predictions and scaling relationships through a systematic approach. First, it identifies the key hyperparameters, batch size B, learning rate, eta, and updates to data, UTD, ratio, sigma, that significantly influence the performance of value-based reinforcement learning, RL algorithms. Next, empirical models are fitted to determine the relationships between these hyperparameters and the required data, D_J, and compute, C_J, needed to achieve a target performance level, J_0. Specifically, the method hypothesizes power law relationships for D_J and C_J as functions of sigma, allowing for the prediction of resource requirements at higher scales based on low-scale experiments. Finally, the method utilizes these relationships to define a Pareto frontier, enabling the optimal allocation of data and compute resources for maximizing performance within a given budget, thus demonstrating the predictability of value-based RL behavior at scale.
Can you provide a simple yet illustrative example demonstrating how the budget requirement function $f equals C plus delta D $ is utilized to predict the performance of a RL agent?
The budget requirement function, F equals C plus delta D, is utilized to predict the performance of a reinforcement learning RL agent by establishing a relationship between the compute requirement, C, and the data requirement, D, needed to achieve a target performance level. For instance, if we have a fixed budget, F_0, for a training run, we can determine the optimal allocation of resources between compute and data by identifying a suitable sigma ** value that maximizes performance while staying within this budget. By analyzing the Pareto frontier, we can visualize how increasing compute, C, allows for a decrease in data, D, and vice versa, thus enabling us to predict the performance level, J_0, that can be achieved with the given budget. This predictive capability is grounded in the empirical relationships established in the paper, which show that both C and D evolve predictably with respect to sigma, allowing us to extrapolate performance outcomes from low-budget experiments to higher-budget scenarios.
What empirical evidence or theoretical justification supports the claim that the relationships between hyperparameters, batch size $B, learning rate $eta, and UTD ratio $sigma, allow for effective scaling of value-based RL methods?
The empirical evidence supporting the claim that the relationships between hyperparameters, batch size B, learning rate eta, and UTD ratio sigma enable effective scaling of value-based RL methods is derived from extensive grid searches and power law fits. Specifically, the study found a strong correlation between the optimal batch size B** and the UTD ratio sigma, indicating that as sigma increases, B** decreases to mitigate overfitting risks associated with larger batch sizes. Additionally, the learning rate eta** was observed to scale inversely with sigma, suggesting that higher UTD values lead to worse performance due to plasticity loss, thus necessitating smaller learning rates. These relationships were empirically validated through experiments on the DeepMind control suite, where the predicted hyperparameters based on sigma led to improved performance across various tasks. The study also established that both data and compute requirements are predictable functions of sigma, further reinforcing the effectiveness of these hyperparameter relationships in scaling value-based RL methods.
What are the specific results achieved by applying your method in terms of performance improvement on the benchmark environments mentioned?
The specific results achieved by applying our method demonstrate that value-based deep reinforcement learning RL algorithms can scale predictably, leading to significant performance improvements in benchmark environments such as the DeepMind Control Suite, DMC, OpenAI Gym, and Isaac Gym. By establishing predictable relationships between hyperparameters, batch size B, learning rate, eta, and updates to data, UTD, ratio, sigma, we were able to optimize resource allocation between data and compute effectively. Our findings indicate that the optimal trade-off between data and compute evolves predictably with higher budgets, allowing us to extrapolate resource requirements from low compute to high compute settings. This predictive capability enables us to achieve higher performance levels without the need for extensive large-scale experiments, as evidenced by the successful application of our model to various algorithms like SAC, BRO, and PQL. Overall, our approach not only enhances sample efficiency, but also maximizes performance within given resource constraints, as illustrated by the Pareto frontiers we established.
What limitations or constraints does your proposed method have, particularly in relation to its application in scaling value-based RL algorithms to larger models or environments?
The proposed method has several limitations and constraints regarding its application in scaling value-based RL algorithms to larger models or environments. Firstly, while the study establishes power law relationships for hyperparameters and resource requirements, it does not provide a theoretical grounding for these laws, leaving open the question of whether more refined functional forms could yield better predictions. Secondly, the analysis is limited to three hyperparameters: batch size B, learning rate eta, and updates to data ratio sigma, and does not consider the optimal trade-off between model size and sigma, which is crucial for compute scaling. Additionally, the study focuses solely on online RL, neglecting the scaling implications for offline to online and offline RL, which could limit the applicability of the findings in broader contexts. Lastly, the empirical models are based on relatively small-scale runs, and there is a need for further research to verify these results with larger model scales and more complex tasks, which may behave differently than the simpler environments studied.